We'll be ready to start.
Sure.
right.
We're recording now, and so I can cut off the front. So just whenever you're ready, Dr. Green.
Well, listen, on the behalf of Dr. Seamster, president of our college, Dr. John Dansby, the chairman of the board of trustees, we certainly want, first of all, to express our appreciation to this both esteemed and distinguished panel of educators who have impacted students and teachers and administration in the cities that you work in. Thank you so much for taking the time to share with our lectureship audience your expertise and your experience. These are indeed challenging times for all of us. We are navigating uncharted waters, and your wisdom is going to be greatly appreciated. I have personal relationships with perhaps all of these panelists. Called Dr. Draper a few weeks ago to tell him, to share with him what I was thinking about. Said, man, listen, we need to do something about education on this lectureship to kind of help our parents, our teachers, and our students. And before I could complete the sentence, he said, yes. In fact, he shared with me that my grandkids just left out the room. And as an educator, the challenges that he was facing with this new normal that we are entering into. And so I'm glad that he has given leadership to this. Look like I either follow him or he follows me. He was my predecessor, church there in Longview, Texas. And then I moved to Houston, and then of course he moved to Houston to become superintendent of the school district where my wife and I lived. And so outstanding educator. And then of course Dr. Green. In fact, I've known him since he was just a little boy. I went in and out of his daddy's church there in Mississippi. In fact, I was going so regularly, my wife got suspicious. It was on my calendar every year. And please say hello to your parents. Give them my love when you speak to them again. Don't know Dr. Boyd, except, of course, her connection with the Dr. Delic there, her connection with the Trinity Gardens Church. And my goodness, one of the great preachers of the nation. Preachers there, love him, love that ministry there. It's also a church where Dr. Draper serves as one of the pastor teachers there. And then, of course, our own Dr. Wanda Williams. I'm probably going to get in trouble with our brotherhood, but she is the educational director for our church. And so, but she brings tremendous expertise to our county. And so we welcome all of you. We look forward to what you have to share with us. And with that, we'll turn it over to our host tonight, Dr. Montrell Green.
Thank you, Dr. Barclay. It's so good to see you and hear your voice.
Thank you.
And to Dr. Seamster and all of the others who worked tirelessly to put this together, I send greetings as well. But we're here and we're so thankful for this opportunity to address issues that are near and dear to all of our hearts, because all of us in one way or another have to engage in education in some form, shape or another. So it is a privilege that we all are assembled here to try to provide some insight and things that we've seen as well. I think the title is named Zoom In on Our Youth. And with the particular idea that we are coming to the theme of educators helping parents and students through this pandemic. And this pandemic has been very challenging, but I would like to say that it's also presenting us with some great opportunities. So if we are wise, we will be able to gain knowledge that we did not have, engage using the tools of technology in a way that we've never done before. And so without further ado, I would like to ask all of the panelists if they would to do a brief introduction as it relates to their background in education. We'll start with Dr. Draper, Dr. Loyde, Dr. Williams, and then I will finish, and then we will get into those topics. We have about 3 areas in particular we're going to zero in on, and I can't wait to get started. So let's go ahead and start our introductions if we could.
All right, well, thank you. I am delighted, Brother Ralph Draper here in Houston, Texas. I'm delighted to be a part of this panel. Thanks to Dr. Barclay, Dr. Singster, the president of my alma mater, Southwestern Christian College. Most of you know I served bivocationally for years, both in ministry and in education, retired officially from education about 6 years ago. So tonight I come to it both as a pastor, I come to it as an educator, and as Dr. Barclay mentioned, I come to it as a grandfather, because I have my 4 grandchildren now, the oldest being a 7-year-old who's actually in the 2nd grade. So he's in this virtual world right now. His school, some of them are meeting, but he has not yet joined them in the physical classroom. So I'm his tutor. I had to go back into my bag of tricks and get back at the art of teaching. I taught 5th grade for a number of years. I taught 6th grade. I became an assistant principal, later on a principal, an assistant superintendent, and then spent the last 12 years as superintendent of schools. So I know it from every level, but I think I come at it tonight most passionately as a grandfather concerned about the welfare of my 4 grandchildren, and then the welfare of children all over the country. So I'm just glad to be a part of this panel and this discussion tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Brother Barclay. I'm also honored to be a part of this panel. I'm Delise Loyde, and first of all, I was a Bible class teacher. I'm the former singles coordinator that, if you might remember way back when, came to your congregation when it was in Houston as a singles coordinator, and I continue to work in ministries at the Trinity Garden Church of Christ. As professionally, I was a teacher, a principal, central office director, and now I currently work with school boards and superintendents, helping them with board governance in the state of Texas. I also help those districts through the pandemic, whether it's on campus or online, helping them navigate the waters to make sure that student learning still occurs. So important for our children, especially children of color. And so again, thank you for letting me be on the panel this evening.
Good evening, everyone. And like everyone else, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you, Brother Barclay, for this opportunity. I too am passionate, of course, about what I do. And I just want to say, Brother Draper, you're not necessarily retired. I think you you are. You're serving in a different capacity now, with their grades.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
But I have been an educator now for 19 years. I've served in a number of capacities. I started, of course, in the classroom at the middle school level. I then, of course, went to the elementary level and then the high school level. At the high school level, I was not in the teaching capacity. I was in the counseling capacity because I also have a psychology and counseling background. So I too have worked in all areas, but just passionate. I'm passionate about all students and the success of all students, but specifically those students with disabilities who continuously struggle, and especially in our new normal now. They are on a different level of challenges. So, I know we're going to talk about that area as well tonight, but I'm just excited to be here and excited to be able to provide some support and resources to those parents and those students who may need some additional supports.
All righty.
Again, as you can see, we have a great panel. I've been, as Dr. Barclay said, I've been in the church, surrounded with the things of the church all my life in ministry. I've had the privilege via education to be able to serve as a substitute teacher, assistant principal, and superintendent of 3 different school districts, with the last 2 serving in the Delta of Mississippi. And so with some of the districts I've had the privilege of serving, they were high poverty. And so that brings up a unique type of experience that I've had serving in those districts and in the Delta region of Mississippi. So I have a passion for young folk. I've also had the privilege of being able to serve as an educational consultant with my own company and be able to go around to different parts of the state of Mississippi regionally. And I've even had the opportunity to do some mission work. And in those mission efforts, I've always had the opportunity to observe the different educational systems. And we've gotten a chance to do that in 5 different countries. So I've gotten a chance to see a few things, and hopefully that will add to this discussion on this evening. So with that said, we're going to jump right into what we have on this evening. Dr. Draper came up with this concept after we started talking about how should we handle this. And so here is what I will reveal from that conversation. And what we're going to do with these 3 different areas, we're going to try to take about 10 minutes. That's our aim, 3 minutes per person. And then we will maybe come back around with some general comments. And I think this is going to be beneficial. So now that we've done the introductions, we're going to talk about dealing with the stresses during this pandemic. And undoubtedly, there have been many stresses from the student perspective, from the parent perspective, with resources in our community. So we're going to ask our panelists to talk about how we deal, what those stresses are and how do we deal with those. The second area we're going to address this evening is dealing with what are some strategies. It's one thing to point out the challenges. It's another thing to suggest, okay, what can we do? What are some options that's out there? And so with this powerful panel, we want to put some of those things forward for your consideration. And finally, not only the strategies that we can deal with personally, we want to try to make sure that we cover within this time that we have the supports that are out there. And so anytime we're dealing with issues that are great and challenging, we don't need to try to tackle it alone. We don't need to think that we're alone, because we're not. There are resources that are out there. So those are the 3 areas: the stresses, the strategies, and the supports. With that being said, we're going to stick with that same order of Draper, Loyde, and Williams, if you will. So Dr. Draper, we're starting with the stresses. And so would you please address that now, if you would?
All right, thank you. Now, even though he's given it in a linear fashion, I'm very apt to just kind of bounce in and out. So I just wanted to give you that warning. But as I talk about, the stress that all of us find ourselves under because we're in uncharted water, I really like the theme of the lectureship this year, Who Moved My Church, which kind of a play off of a book that many of us have probably studied called Who Moved My Cheese. And it's when life shifts on us in ways that we were not expecting, we were not ready for. And so how do we cope with that movement when life becomes unsteady, or when there are answers that we don't know? And certainly in the realm of family and education, we find ourselves in some very uncharted waters. I heard a statistic on the TV. I didn't catch the exact numbers, but they were talking about the increase of both violence in general in our nation. The police are all reporting a high level of violence, which probably very much grows out of this stress. And they spoke about the high level of domestic violence that was going on in our nation. And so we all find ourselves under this tremendous stress and trying to have an appreciation for our students who find themselves in a world they're not familiar with, our parents who find themselves definitely in a world they're not familiar with. They're trying to support their children. And, if you're like me, even though I'm an educator, once they start getting past 2nd and 3rd grade, I get real nervous about how I'm going to support that. You start thinking about high school. So parents trying to move outside of what they're comfortable with and maintain a living and keep the household. So there's a lot of stress there. And then also the stress that our educators are facing. Teachers, I heard a conference the other day between a text message back and forth between a parent and a teacher, and the parent was complaining about the grades that her child received for the 6 weeks, and the teacher was trying to explain that the kid had missed some assignments and that she had been reaching out to them. And literally, this literally happened. She informed the parent, said, I spoke with your husband the other day, and then the whole conversation, text message switched, and the parent got on to the teacher about, don't be talking to my husband. You and him don't need to be on the phone. I'm saying all that to help you see that everybody's under a lot of stress. And we've got to understand that the students, the parents, the teacher, and just the greater community we find ourselves. So let me just quickly mention 2 things that I want to share with parents, especially, and the family, because my focus tonight is how do we help the family deal with this pandemic? And inclusive of that is the teacher as an extension of that family beyond our walls. One, I want us to think about Maslow's hierarchy there, and the things that our students and everybody in the family needs. When we start thinking about, he talked about the physiological needs, making sure that we are aware and meeting the needs of our children, of the household, and that's one of the things we hear our politicians discussing. We've got to make sure that we're meeting those needs. And then he moves up and he starts talking about safety and security. And one of the things that my wife and I had to realize, that we were on channel CNN and some of the other channels listening to all that was being said about the pandemic and all that was being said about the stresses, and our grandchildren were absorbing all that. So we had to become aware of what kind of environment we were creating in terms of giving them a sense of a safe world, a sense that no matter what's going on in the greater world, we needed to communicate to our grandchildren that their world was safe. And then he goes on to talk about a sense of love and belonging, a sense of esteem and value, that children know that they're important. And I want to say that I think the family needs to communicate to the teacher their value. Teachers must communicate to parents and the family the value that they hold for them, and then the whole ideal of self-actualization. But I want to tie Maslow's to somebody who really put it together way before he did, and that's the Apostle Paul in Ephesians chapter 6, when he talks about to the fathers to bring up our children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. So as we cope with this stress, I want us to remember those 2 admonitions by Paul. He says, bring up your children in the nurture and the admonition of the Lord. And I've always loved that text, because before he talks about admonishing or teaching or communicating, he says in the nurture, the climate has to be right. We have to make sure in the midst of this pandemic, what we can control, the context of our 4 walls, the context of our home, what kind of climate are we setting for our home? And then as we set that climate, he says the admonition, I call it climate and communication. So once we set the climate, what are we communicating? Does what I'm saying matching the climate that I'm setting? It's important in our homes and in our schools that we set a climate, and that what we communicate match the climate in a very intentional way that we're trying to set. So I would encourage you, and I'll speak more to this when I talk about some of the strategies, but I encourage you to be very intentional about what kind of climate am I setting. Think about Maslow's hierarchy there. What kind of climate, what kind of communication am I sending off to my wife and to my husband and to my children and to the teacher? What's going on in what I can control? I can't control the White House. I can't control the State House. I can't control what's going on at City Hall. The elements we control are the elements we need to focus on.
Amen. We appreciate that. Dr. Loyde, stresses.
Yes, Dr. Draper, you're exactly right. I want to share with parents today that we have to be the calm. In the midst of all this chaos, we have to be the calm. You have to be the calm. And how do you become the calm? Well, it starts with self-care. And before the pandemic, we all were working hard. And during the pandemic, we're all working harder in ways that we did not even imagine. Sure. And so in order to be the calm, you have to begin by taking care of yourself. As a parent, you might think, hey, there's so much going on. I've got work. I've got work when I come home because I'm still helping my kids with school. I'm worried about the bills. I might have lost my job. All of these things could be in one household. But in order to take care of yourself, you've got to start with that 5 minute, that 15 minute, that 20 minutes of just being still. And you know, the perfect way is to just be still with God. Just take that time to just tell all your cares to the Lord. You can start right there. And then you can move on even from there to begin to find out what are the few simple things that you can do for yourself in your household. You know, you can't go to the movie anymore. You probably shouldn't go to the mall, but now there are some things that you can do inside your home that can be for you. Exercise is always a great thing, whether it's walking or running. Maybe that's what you would like to do, but you have to find that activity that's just for you, not for your husband, not for your wife, not for your children, but for you to take care of yourself. And as you take care of yourself, your children will see you. Because one component of helping us deal with the stress of COVID-19 is realizing that we are still those active role models for our children. They are watching us. They are, you know, even when you think they're really not paying attention to anything, they are watching us. They watch how we watch the news. They watch how we react to the news. They watch how we show our fear about COVID-19. And so as you, as a parent, are considering, how can I be the calm? You have to think, first, I have to calm myself by myself. And after I calm myself by myself with my Lord, then I can reach out and help my children, help my mate, help my neighbors and my family, just working there. I want to share a couple of things that you may not think about with stress. You know, children have stress. We talk about even before COVID-19 that students had ACE. It's like an adverse childhood experience, something bad that might have happened in their childhood. Some of us grow up and we still talk about those ACEs in our lives, right? But now that COVID-19 has occurred, we all, even the adults, now adults have adult adverse experiences because we're all feeling the trauma of that sudden jolt. I think we all might remember where we were in March 2020, and then we think where we are now and how much has changed in our lives. And so as you're working to deal with the stress, realize that you must be the calm, and the way to be the calm is to be inside yourself and then speak truth to your children. Tell them what COVID-19 is. Tell them about the people who are trying to find a vaccine, where they can get help, those types of things. The kids hear, they hear everything. And if you don't explain to them, they're going to get an explanation from somewhere else. And so it might as well be from the best source of information, their parents. Thank you.
All good information. Dr. Williams.
All right. Dr. Loyde was all over here in my notes. But,
That's all right. That's all right.
definitely, I would have to agree totally with Dr. Loyde. You know, we can't take care of our kids until we take care of ourselves as parents. And that is so critical. Dr. Loyde, I totally agree. You know, this pandemic has brought on, and it continues to bring on. I mean, you know, it feels like it's never ending. You know, that's stress in itself. You know, you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, you have all these other things. Parents are, you know, have so many roles now. You know, they have to be parent. You know, they have to be mom, dad, grandmother, aunt, uncle, whoever is the caregiver. They have to work. You know, they still have to go to work and make sure they have, you know, clothes on their back and food on the table. And you know what? Some of that stress is coming from, you know, the fact that some of our parents are not working. You know, they've lost jobs in this pandemic and, you know, haven't been able to find employment as of yet. So that's not yet another stressor that they're dealing with. And then, you know, those school districts that, of course, are full virtual. Well, now you know, they see themselves as having to become an educator, you know, a teacher. So, you know, they're serving multiple roles, and I understand, you know, completely how overwhelming, you know,
That's
that
right.
can be, because as parents, you want to provide children with a sense of consistency, normalcy, you know, in a time filled with uncertainty, fear, and change, and all of those things are not easy tasks to accomplish. But one thing I want parents to focus on is, you know, your faith, you know, giving thanks in all circumstances, you know, for this is God's will, 1 Thessalonians. You have to, you know, ensure our kids that no matter what, you know, that, you know, no matter what our fear is as or your fears are as parents, your kids still have to know that you are ultimately that rock that they have to lean on. So one thing that I want to stress is that you know, there's things I think that not just the students are dealing with, the parents. There are three things. There's that social connection. That's not just kids. That's our parents too. You know, you're not able to get out, and you know, oftentimes we have an outlet. We can go and kind of have our time with our friends and you know, loved ones or your spouse, and have that date night. And a lot of those things have gone away. So, you know, as parents, you're not able to have that social connection either. But especially for our kids, it's critical for our kids to be able to have those social connection with their peers and friends, you know, and they have a lack of that now, especially if they're full virtual. The emotional well-being, you know, Dr. Loyde just talked about that. That social and emotional aspect, you know, yet again, that affects our parents as well as our students. And then just access to, you know, extracurricular, you know, again, being able to do those things that you love, and you know, that make you happy, and you know, just give you a whole new energy. You're not able to do that. So what I'm charging parents with tonight, you know, to despite all of that, is to and I'll talk about this when we start talking about strategies, but make it a priority to nurture gratitude in your children. You know, as I stated, you know, I talked about 1 Thessalonians and giving thanks in all circumstances. We have to, you know, teach our kids that, you know, reasons to be thankful no matter what. You know, we are going through it, but I know that there are things that we can be thankful for. So, you know, I want to talk about that. I want to go in more detail about that and give some strategies and support in that, because I think that's important, especially now. We're going into the holidays. They're going to look different, you know.
That's right. That's right.
You know, they're you know, we're not gonna have to be surrounded by you know, all the family that we are accustomed to. And even at Christmas time, you may not be surrounded, you know, the kids may not be surrounded with all those gifts that they, you know, are accustomed to. So we're gonna have to, you know, think outside the box, and think about those things or ways that, you know, that we can still give thanks and be thankful for. Again, that nurture and that gratitude, having a sense of gratitude, and allowing our kids to have that same mindset.
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And all of these are great points, because again, we are all dealing with in one form or another, the stresses, and our parents, children, even the teachers, as we well know, they're dealing with a lot of stress. Some of these teachers, they were not technologically savvy when they went into this. The school systems in some senses have been behind just from having the things that they need to have in place from a structural standpoint to support what's happening now. And I know that it's a different representation based on those who are talking from a panelist standpoint, but in Mississippi, we have the virtual and the hybrid, if you will, but there are stresses all over. So I think all of those points are powerful, and we can grow thereby. So without any further ado, let us look not only at this idea of stresses, but as we said earlier, what are some strategies or suggestions? And again, this is a powerful group of educators and parents, grandparents, so to speak, all these various titles. So I'm just excited about even hearing what they have to say. So again, in the same order, Dr. Draper, if you would, some strategies.
I want to echo something that's already been said, and I guess I'll say it as though I were on a plane, and that is, if we have turbulence, which we do right now, when the oxygen mask drop down, put yours on before you start putting your children's on. And that's kind of what Dr. Loyde was referring to, that it's important that the adults in the situation, that's both in the home and in the classroom, it's important that self-care in order for you to care for others. So thank you all so much for what you said. I just want to mention some strategies that we've used here. One of the things that I did early on with my grandchildren, when they come here for school, and they're here 4 days a week, and we go upstairs. I created a classroom. You can kind of see the backdrop. This is the classroom. You can kind of see the flag back there, the map, the little chart back there is the math skills that I do with my younger two that are 3 years old and 4 years old. We do calendar math. But we come up and they take a seat on the couch, or they have floor seats that they like, and we do what we call talk time. We start every day with talk time. Just say, hey, we're going to have talk time. We're going to talk about anything anybody want to talk about. When I first started with them, they didn't have a whole lot to say, but I made sure I had 2 or 3 stories I would share every time. And then they started slowly sharing what happened last night, or what they ate for dinner, or one of my youngest ones, 3 years old, I think he just started making up stories so he could be involved in the talk time. But they started understanding the concept. And sometimes as I started getting busy, I would forget to do the talk time, and they would say, Poppy, we need to do talk time. So that allows them a chance to say what's on their hearts or what's on their mind. So I would encourage you to make sure you're giving your kids an opportunity to talk. And kids don't find it easy to talk. And it's not always as easy as saying, talk to me. So sometimes you have to find indirect ways. And sometimes I'll ask them a question. I'll say, tell me about a friend of yours who's afraid of something in their life, and what do they do? Now, oftentimes when they answer that question about a friend, they will actually pull on their own life. So you have to find ways to get them to talk. You have to be okay with momentary silence and give them a chance to talk. And so I start every day off with talk time. We do prayer time where I pray, and they get to hear what I pray about, and hear my confession to the Lord that I trust him, that everything will be okay. And then I let them do some prayer. And we do story time. There's a time in our day I pull out a book and I'll read a book to them. One of the ones I read to them was about the Watson family. And the Watson family is a Black family that's going down south to visit their grandparents in Alabama. And they have the typical struggles. You know, they're in a car, the brother doesn't want the sister to touch him. And so we start talking about that, and it just gives them a time. And you can use biblical stories. Just read about David and Goliath and the giant, and to talk about how David. So we do story time. And good thing about bringing the school to the house, I don't have to separate church and state. I can have biblical stories in my story time with my own grandbabies. And then we do family fun time. I encourage my children, who are their parents, to make sure that they're planning for ways for their family to have fun. It could be puzzles, it could be games, it could be projects. Somebody, Dr. Williams mentioned earlier, it could be exercising, but to be intentional. Again, it's about climate and communication. Climate is how do we set a tone to make sure people feel a certain way. Communication is how do we match that feel with what we're saying. And so to be intentional, think about talk time, prayer time, story time, family time, and then plan it for yourself and plan it for your children, and be intentional about it. It may be uncomfortable at first, but you're trying to make sure that you set a climate. And anytime we deal with climate and communication, only focus on what you can control. You can't control the climate outside. We can't control the climate in DC. We can't control the climate in the school district. But my little school is my 4 children, my wife and myself. That's a school of 6. And we simply try to control the climate and the communication in that context.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Dr. Loyde.
Thank you, Dr. Draper. I want to talk a little bit about the epidemic within the pandemic. And what I think about when I say that is what happened immediately as soon as we all knew that COVID-19 was a real thing. We also found out the big myth that we thought everybody was connected, and we just weren't. And I'm talking about students primarily, but we're talking about adults as well. We were not connected in a real way. And so here's my commercial, Dr. Green. My commercial to parents is that every school system in every state is trying exceptionally hard to make sure that students get connected by making sure they have a device where they can get their lessons, whether they're on campus or online. As parents, we need to understand that that's a responsibility, and we need to encourage our students and really provide that routine that Dr. Draper was talking about to make sure that our students stay connected. Because when they're not connected, school is marching on. We're having real lessons and real grades. And when our children are not attending, even when they're at home, being online or remote, depending on which way you want to say it, our students are losing out. I see it time and time again. Parents, I really implore you, please make sure that you're staying connected with the school, stay connected with that principal, that teacher, that aide, that paraprofessional. Stay on track with the school, because time continues to roll on and your child needs to progress with that time to the next grade level. During this pandemic, you may have a few days where your child may say, oh, I don't feel so good. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that. Help them through those times. Those are normal times. Remember, just like Dr. Williams said, that's that social emotional. Kids and parents all have, as we say these days, they're feeling some kind of way. But even though they may be feeling some kind of way, we still must do our lessons. Our children, our Black and our brown children, are falling behind because they do not all believe that school is marching on. School is marching on. Secondary students, those credits still work and graduation is coming. And if you don't have what it takes to make that grade, then you're going to stay right where you are. And we don't want any of our students, elementary, middle school, or high school, to be in standstill because of a pandemic. If you don't feel like you have what you need for your child to connect with the school, you need to contact the school. Every school in every district in every state in our nation has an obligation to make sure that students are connected. Now in Texas, we have a big fancy name for that called Operation Connectivity. That's as good as it gets, right? But in every state, there's a different title for that statewide program that ensures that students have that right and have that opportunity and that access to learn. And to me, that is the biggest COVID-19 strategy, is to make sure that we keep our students, our children, the future for all of us, that we keep them engaged in learning with that routine, and that if there's an electronic device that's supposed to be in play, that we make sure that we do that. We have to speak up and make sure that our children are moving forward and are connected. And that's my big strategy. I know it's only one, but I'm passionate about it, if you could tell.
Great one, great one, great one. We receive it, and I trust that everybody at home is receiving it even now. Dr. Williams.
All right, I'm gonna just continue with my theme of gratefulness and talk about, or give a few suggestions, I'll say, as to how to nurture that in your kids. And I want to also, before I start with that, I do want to say, yes, Dr. Loyde, it is critical that our parents stay connected with the school system. Even though most of our districts are virtually are educating students virtually, parent involvement is it has always not been where it should be, but I think even more so now, that parents don't have that direct contact with schools and then are able to, kind of go and come and go as they please and when they want. Some of them have kind of, they shy away from it now, and of course, part of it is fear. Some just don't, because we are in a pandemic, but it's critical that parents understand that there are a number of ways that they can still connect with their teachers and the school system. On the school district website, there are a number of opportunities to engage with the district, as well as the individual school websites as well. And then that just direct contact with your child's teacher. Make sure that you do that on a regular and consistent basis, so that you understand where your child is academically, and that you can make sure or ensure, especially since they're at home, that you are monitoring that, more closely, and probably more so than the teacher would be at this point, because you have direct contact with your child. So please, please, please make sure that you do continue to make contact or keep contact with those professionals who are charged with the success of your child. That's most critical. So I just want to say about gratitude. There are a number of studies that have looked at the impact of gratitude on overall health. The results show that, both mental and physical, that it can have a direct impact, on your happiness. Okay. So one thing that I would say to do, and this is really, really a really good strategy for students, because we have to provide feedback or ensure students that, that they're well on their way, or that they, are on the right track. And without that direct contact with teachers, some of them are missing that. They're not getting that reassurance that they normally would get. So I would say every day, focus on what went right each day. Okay. Have a time where you sit with your child, talk about the day, not what went wrong. Okay. Because, unfortunately, every day is not going to be a good day. Okay. But there's one thing I know. Okay. Even if it's, as small as, as small as, I went to the refrigerator and, nobody had drank up all the juices. I was able to get me a juice. Okay. That last juice was still sitting there waiting on me. Okay. There was something good about your day. Okay. So just find something each day, take a couple of minutes at bedtime. Okay. And it doesn't necessarily have to be verbal. I would even say write it, write it down, because, you can go back and see, look at all these good things, God has provided, or look at all these good things that God has allowed to happen for me. Despite this pandemic, guys, there are so many things that we can be grateful for. So make sure that you allow for time for that, because again, you're teaching that gratitude. Like Dr. Loyde said, everything that you do, you're teaching your child something, whether it's good or bad. Okay. So make it intentional to help them, with that sense of gratitude, whether it's talking about it, at least one thing, as I stated, no matter how small, one part of the day that went well. And then just find, I'll say the verbal and the written expressions of thankfulness. That one thing that went right, talk about that. And then on the flip side, write down those written and those verbal expressions that you talk about of thankfulness. Okay. And so let's not just say Thanksgiving for the times that we're thankful and the times we talk about what we're thankful for. Let's do that on a continuous and regular basis. As far as those things I talked about as social connections, emotional well-being, and access to curricular activities, emotional well-being is critical for both. So I would say when you are doing that time of nurturing for your kids for gratitude, do a self-check. Okay. You know, that's critical too, because oftentimes, and you know, it's very unfortunate, at least in my school system, we had two high school students and a middle school students to commit suicide last year. And you know, so it's critical that we check in on our babies. Okay. And you know, it's okay not to be okay. But what's not okay, guys, is for us to not understand how critical it is to have, you know, continuous talks and continuous connections with our kids, so we can horn on those things that are just not right. Is my time up?
Yes,
Green.
that's okay. Yes.
Okay, I'm
I
sorry.
think we have
See,
about
I
7.
didn't I tell y'all I was gonna start getting past
Look, look,
You're doing fine.
I was gonna
there's
I
no
apologize.
question.
I
There's no
apologize.
question.
I at least got a couple of those things out. I think that were great, were suggestions for them.
Absolutely. We have about 7 minutes left, I'm being told, so that's right up on us. I did want to say this. The one comment I did want to make as it relates to input, please make sure, I have a 14 and an 11-year-old, and technology is so powerful. Please, let's make sure we keep our eyes on these devices as much as possible. Please try to make sure whenever you can, if your child is positioned a certain way, make sure that they're positioned so that they are not always looking at the door, so to speak, or they're not in a closed room all by themselves the whole day. Please try to keep that in mind. I feel very passionate about that. And because you would be surprised, and some of us wouldn't be, what these children can get access to on this internet. So let's please be mindful of that. All right. The last thing that we had, and we're going to go in reverse order this time, so we'll try to keep it as brief as possible with the time that we have remaining, is the support. If I'm not mistaken, supports. And so we probably even should have had a little more time on this one, but nevertheless, let's do what we can, educators. Let's make it brief but powerful in the reverse order. Dr. Williams, let's talk about the support. If you might want to put the church in there at some point, because we do have the different churches that are represented, and we do know that the church is powerful as well. There are other supports, but let us not forget the church as well. Dr. Williams, you're back up.
I just wanted to just reiterate the supports in the school system. We have to, there's so many supports in the school system. We have social workers, we have counselors, you know, we have, what we call wellness counselors and mental health counselors that we work with in the community that are available for our students. So I don't want to necessarily specifically say, because all districts, you know, do things differently. All, you know, churches have different resources. I know, of course, within our church, we have a number, you know, of counselors, you know, educators, you know, who are more than, of course, willing to offer support. I would even suggest, again, as I stated, all of those things, especially, you know, during this pandemic, most school systems and most communities have, within the community, the Chamber of Commerce is one of them. I would say the website gives a number of resources. The school district websites give a number of resources, and I actually wanted to, and I know I wouldn't get through it, so I'm not even gonna pull it up. But another thing I want to say, there are so many websites and apps that you can use for social emotional well-being, even you know, with prayer and meditation. I just challenge you to search one of those websites. I would like to give, though, that help with emotional well-being is virtualcalming.com. It's awesome. Virtualcalming.com, it gives you just a number of like meditation and calming activities for not only you as a parent, you as an adult, but for kids as well. So that's just a resource I charge you to look up, but you know, a number of apps and stuff as well. But you know, support, you know, I think, you know, is all around us. You know, it's just whether or not we actually seek it and understand that, again, it's okay not to be okay. But when you need the help, it's not okay to seek out and get it.
Amen.
Right.
Dr. Loyde.
Dr. Williams is such a wealth of information. I know I'm going to have to stay connected with her so I can continue to learn. Very good, Dr. Williams. I just wanted to share this brief thing. Our children are just like we are. We want three basic things. We want to feel love every day. We want something to eat every day. And we want a clean place to rest or to get sleep every day. And so no matter whether you're a person who hasn't been affected that much by COVID-19 or it's just torn your life apart in your opinion, if you can keep those three things as goals, feeling love, a place to eat, a time to sleep, then you're on your way to success. And I just want to share 2 websites because I know the time is moving. Going back to the technology, Dr. Green, for those of you who may feel that you don't know the words to say to your kids, how to explain COVID-19, how to explain what's happening with the pandemic, there's a website that has little primary books. It's free. It's called meetthehelpers.org, meetthehelpers.org. And what it is it's primary little books that talks about the different people in society who are helping us get better as a society. And so that might be a way that you can read to your child the book. It's a color print online to see that. And then for those that you were talking about, Dr. Green, who might try to go the wrong way on technology, then their parents need to go to commonsensemedia.org, commonsensemedia.org. You can take anything that you think, whether it's a movie or just even a YouTube or anything like that, and look it up, and you can see if it has something that your child should not be watching ahead of time before they can see it. Things are rated by grade level, like K-2, middle school and high school. And so those 2 can really help you with technology with your children. Thank you.
Wonderful.
In the context of this lectureship, I really want to speak for a minute to the church, because the church is a tremendous resource to its members. And so I want to share some things that churches could do. And I want to encourage members, don't suffer in silence because we're being impacted in different ways, but somebody is being impacted like your family. So don't think that you're in this alone, because you're not. The word fellowship means that we share in each other's life. We participate in each other's life. One of the things our church does is Dr. Loyde, and you can see why. She does pep talks, and we put them online for the members to be able to go to, for the families to be able to listen to. And she'll just give them a few-minute pep talk about things they can do to cope with stress and things they can do to get through the pandemic. We still have our children's Bible hour. We do it virtually. And so the kids, every Sunday, they look forward to Bible hour. So we need to try to keep as much regular routine in their life as possible to create stability. So we make sure we do the Bible hour virtually and kids can experience it. We do shout outs virtually, where a family can tape itself. They can just use their iPhone, and they can just get together and take 30 seconds to a minute to talk about how their family's doing, get a kid's chance to say hi to everybody and to see themselves doing our worship. We take a minute and we share those shout outs just to keep them connected to people they've not seen for a long time. We provide professional counseling. Of course, we provide pastoral counseling, but we also have professional counselors connected with our church that we can connect people to when they're dealing with domestic violence or domestic stress or other kind of financial problems. We have ways of supporting them with food. We have ways of supporting them financially. But the church is a tremendous resource, and it's one of the reasons God didn't save us and leave us alone. He put us in a fellowship. He put us in a local congregation so that we could support each other through tough times. And so I want to join with Dr. Green and say that's a tremendous resource. But let me really emphasize, if your family is facing stress that's reached a level of violence, emotionally, physically, or verbally, I would encourage you to reach out and get some help, either through your church and also the other community organizations that can help you. But God loves you, we love you, and we're all in this together, preachers, teachers, everybody in the church. We have those stresses and we have to cope with them. And we have to have the ability to reach out and say, I need some help. And that's all of us. There are times in our life where we just need somebody to come alongside us and love us and support us as we go through how we're trying to handle stress. Sometimes we do a better job than other times in my own life. There are times I've been very strong, but there are times like Elijah, when my strength was at. So let's reach out to our church family and let's build our church during this virtual time to
Yes.
continue to serve in a virtual way.
Awesome. I don't know about you, but I'm telling you, this is powerful information and a timely forum. We're thankful even for this opportunity to be able to share this. We trust that you got something from this that's going to be able to bless you. I do want to throw in a couple of things on the end of this from my own perspective. Parents, please know, if you're anything like me, I'm already running into problems. I may have a PhD, but they do things differently. It seems like when you're facing some of the children. So when you some of us have forgotten more than we've learned, so to speak. And so YouTube, you would be surprised how many educational materials are out there. Teachers, professors, if you type what you are dealing with, if your child has a problem, you think it's over your head, it may be. Guide your child to YouTube. They can find almost anything they're dealing with, I promise you, and that's free.
Yeah.
And one more thing with regards to the church, I think, especially as Dr. Draper said, when we're talking about who moved my cheese or who moved my church, in this case, I really believe now more than ever, and I've seen it at work, with glory be to God, with what we're doing, and even with what the lectureship is doing, with the vision of how we're coming on virtually. We have to get out of the box. We have to learn to move, because with the situations that we are involved in now, we have to move or we're going to perish. So we have to do what we have to do, or people are going to die physically and spiritually. So I think all of the things that have been brought up are powerful, timely, and I just thank God for the decades of experience and the multitude of levels that are reflected even in this panel. And so again, Dr. Barclay, we are thankful. Before I do that, are there any quick closing in one or two? Okay, Dr. Barclay, we're thankful. Dr. Seamster in his absence, and I think I forgot to mention Brother Dansby. I don't know how I did that. We're thankful for the opportunity to come on in this format, and we just trust that it's going to be a blessing to God's people, even when they watch it live and even after the fact. So, Dr. Barclay, we are thankful.
This has been absolutely incredible. It's clear to me that some preachers who were involved in this just based upon the alliteration, stresses, strategies, and support. I told a group of preachers this morning that when I was in undergraduate school there in East Texas, I had a preaching professor, Dr. Simmons, who taught us that originality in preaching is only the ability to forget where you got it from. So, Dr. Williams, when you hear this preach from the pulpit, Stone Church, you'll just remain silent. And I'm brilliant. Guys, this was absolutely incredible. I knew it would be, so much so that I schedule it. The only thing in the lectureship I scheduled for repetition. It will be on Saturday if I can get to them tonight, since we got to upload some stuff here tonight. Not only is it going to be on Saturday, it's going to be on the Tuesday as well. I knew, I just had a feeling that this was going to be as powerful as in reality it has turned out to be. And then again, guys, thank you all so much. Now, Dr. Draper, I am a tad bit concerned that that map in your background doesn't have a lot of blue in it.
Well, you know, I do live in Texas, and we're still trying to turn Texas blue. Now, you all in Georgia, you're showing us the way. we got a ways to go in Texas.
Hello.
Mississippi and Texas, we're just not there yet.
Oh my God.
Well, all right, and that kept prancing itself in your background there, Dr. You're forgiven for that, all right.
Appreciate you.
But guys, listen, thank you all so much. This was
Thanks for the invite.
so helpful.
Thank
You. Dr. Williams, lest I forget, we need to run this tape in all of our classes here.
Okay.
In the next
Trinity Garden, we're going to want to use this also. So Tim will be contacting you because he says he'd like to use this in our church.
This is going to run in all of our classes here.
Okay.
I'm going to put it on my